Jake Morrison walked into the Great Hall of the Galactic Council for what he knew would be the last time. His black shoes clicked on the smooth metal floor as he moved toward the center of the room. Behind him, his assistant Lisa Carter carried a small recording device. She had worked with Jake for 3 years now, and she could tell he was worried even though his face showed nothing. The hall was huge and round, with tall ceilings that seemed to go up forever. Hundreds of seats filled the space, each one designed for a different alien species. The Valorians sat tall and proud with their golden skin shining under the bright lights. The Keth Mori looked ancient and wise, their gray faces marked with deep lines that showed their age. The Nexari had thin bodies and large eyes that never seemed to blink as they watched everything around them. Jake had been coming to this place for 5 years as Earth's main representative. He had made deals, solved problems, and tried to keep peace between humans and the other species. But today felt different. Today, the air seemed thick with anger and fear. Counselor Zethkar stood up from his seat at the front of the room. He was a Valorian, which meant he was over 7 feet tall and had 4 arms. His voice was deep and loud when he spoke. Ambassador Morrison, thank you for coming today. We have important matters to discuss. Jake nodded but said nothing. He had learned that sometimes it was better to stay quiet and listen first. The council has been talking for many months about the human problem, Zethkar continued. His golden eyes looked angry as he spoke. Your species has been expanding too fast across the galaxy. You build colonies on every world you can find. You make weapons that are too powerful. You fight wars that destroy entire systems. Lisa wrote down every word as other council members nodded their agreement. Jake had heard these complaints before, but never had they sounded so final. Humans are too dangerous, said Counselor Vexma, a female Nexari with silver skin. You do not follow the old ways. You do not respect the balance that has kept our galaxy peaceful for thousands of years. An old Keth Mori named Dureth raised one of his 6 hands. We have watched your species for only 200 years, yet in that short time you have spread to over 50 star systems. The Valorians took 5,000 years to reach the same number. The Nexari took 8,000. You moved too fast. Jake felt a cold feeling in his stomach. These aliens had lived for thousands of years each. To them, humans were like children who had grown too big too quickly. He understood their fear, but he also knew that fear was making them do something terrible. We have made our decision, Zethkar announced. The Great Hall became completely quiet. Even the soft humming of the air system seemed to stop. All human settlements beyond your home system of Sol must be abandoned. You have 1 standard year to remove every human from every world outside of Earth, Mars, and your other original colonies. The words hit Jake like a physical blow. 50 star systems. 300 million humans living on worlds they had called home for generations. Farms that fed billions of people. Cities that had taken decades to build. Research stations that were making discoveries to help all species in the galaxy. This includes all military bases, all trading posts, all research facilities, added Vexma. Humans will be restricted to the Sol system only. Any human ship found outside that area will be destroyed without warning. Lisa's hand was shaking as she wrote. Jake could hear her breathing getting faster, but he remained calm on the outside. Inside, his mind was racing. This was not just about moving people. This was about destroying the human dream of reaching for the stars. What about the families who have lived on New Haven for 3 generations? Jake asked quietly. What about the children who were born on colony worlds and have never seen Earth? They will adapt, Dureth said coldly. Humans are good at surviving, or so you always tell us. What about our trade agreements, our research partnerships, the medical supplies we provide to 12 different species? Jake's voice was still calm, but Lisa could see his hands making small fists. "Other arrangements will be made," Zethkar replied. "The galaxy managed without humans before. It will manage again." Jake looked around the room at faces he had once thought were friends. Counselor Raldim from Andromeda Station, who had once thanked him for saving her colony from a plague. General Kexter of the Rim Worlds, who had fought beside human soldiers against space pirates. Ambassador Yulvan, who had signed the great trade agreement that brought prosperity to dozens of worlds. Now they all looked at him with cold eyes, as if he was a stranger. As if the 5 years of friendship and cooperation had never happened. "And if we refuse?" Jake asked. The question made several council members move uncomfortably in their seats. Zethkar's 4 arms crossed over his chest. "Then we will use force," he said simply. "The combined fleets of the Valorian Empire, the Nexari Federation, and the Kethmori Alliance number over 10,000 warships. Your human fleet has less than 2,000 ships. The choice should be easy." Jake nodded slowly. He had expected this threat. The math was simple and terrible. Humanity could not win a war against the entire galaxy, no matter how good their ships and soldiers were. "How long do we have to decide?" he asked. "You will give us your answer now," Vexma said. "We have been patient long enough. Too many years have been wasted talking when action was needed." The Great Hall was so quiet that Jake could hear his own heartbeat. 300 million human lives hung on his next words. The future of his entire species depended on what he said in the next few moments. He thought about Captain Ryan Phillips, who was probably right now loading medical supplies on New Haven to help sick children on 6 different worlds. He thought about Dr. Amanda Ross, whose research into alien biology had saved thousands of lives. He thought about all the human families who had built new lives among the stars, who had worked hard to be good neighbors to alien species. But he also thought about the 10,000 warships pointed at human space. He thought about the children. Who would die if this turned into a war? He thought about Earth itself, which could be destroyed if humanity chose to fight. Jake took a deep breath and looked directly at Zethkar. "Humanity accepts the Council's decision," he said clearly. "We will withdraw from all systems beyond Sol within 1 standard year." The relief in the room was obvious. Several council members actually smiled. They had expected humans to fight, to argue, to make threats. Instead, Jake Morrison had given them exactly what they wanted. "You have made a wise choice, Ambassador," Zethkar said. "This decision will bring peace and stability to the galaxy." Jake nodded again. "If there is nothing else, I would like to begin making arrangements for the evacuation." "Of course, the Council thanks you for your cooperation." Jake turned and walked toward the exit with Lisa beside him. As they reached the door, he stopped and looked back at the hundreds of alien faces watching him. "Counselor Zethkar," he said quietly. "Yes, Ambassador? I hope you never regret this decision." Then Jake Morrison and Lisa Carter walked out of the Galactic Council chamber for the last time. Behind them, the aliens began celebrating their victory over the dangerous humans. None of them noticed the small smile on Jake's face as the doors closed behind him. Captain Ryan Phillips stood on the bridge of his cargo ship, Northern Star, and watched the planet New Haven grow larger in the front window. The blue and green world had been home to 2 million humans for 30 years. Children had been born there. Families had built farms and cities. Scientists had made discoveries that helped people across the galaxy. Now it was all going to be abandoned. "Captain, we're getting signals from over 400 ships," said his first officer, Maria Santos. She was reading from a screen that showed tiny dots of light moving around the planet. "They're all human vessels waiting for evacuation orders." Ryan nodded but felt sick inside. 400 ships seemed like a lot, but they would need to move 2 million people plus all their belongings and equipment. It would take dozens of trips to get everyone out. Any word from the other colonies? He asked. Yes, sir. The same thing is happening everywhere. Paradise Station, New Terra, Freedom's Edge, all of them. Every human settlement beyond Sol is packing up and leaving. Ryan had been a ship captain for 20 years. He had fought pirates, rescued people from disasters, and delivered supplies to colonies that needed help. But he had never seen anything like this. An entire species was picking up and moving home, and they were doing it without complaint or argument. Captain Phillips, this is New Haven Control, came a voice over the radio. Please proceed to Landing Bay 7. Dr. Amanda Ross is waiting for you there. Ryan guided his ship down through the atmosphere toward the planet's surface. As they got closer, he could see the signs of the Great Evacuation. Huge piles of equipment sat outside every building. Long lines of people waited with their luggage and personal items. Children held tight to their parents' hands as they prepared to leave the only home they had ever known. Landing Bay 7 was busy with activity. Workers in uniform moved back and forth, loading boxes and containers onto waiting ships. Ryan could see that everything was organized and planned. This was not panic or chaos. This was a careful, planned operation. Dr. Amanda Ross was waiting for them at the landing bay entrance. She was a tall woman with gray hair who had spent 15 years studying alien life forms on New Haven. Her research had helped create medicines that saved lives across the galaxy. Now she was watching as her life's work was packed into boxes. Captain Phillips, she said, as Ryan walked down the ramp from his ship. Thank you for coming. We have a special cargo for you. What kind of cargo? Doctor? Amanda led him toward a large building where workers were carefully loading sealed containers onto moving platforms. Biological samples, tissue cultures, genetic data. Everything we've learned about alien biology in the past 15 years. Ryan looked at the containers. There were hundreds of them, each one marked with complex codes and symbols. This must be worth millions of credits. It's worth more than money, Amanda replied. This research could help cure diseases, create new medicines, even help different species understand each other better. The Council thinks we're just going to throw it away, but we're not wasteful people. As the containers were loaded onto his ship, Ryan noticed something strange. The workers were being very careful with everything, but they were also very quiet. Nobody was complaining about leaving their homes. Nobody was crying or angry. They all seemed to know exactly what they were doing. Doctor, can I ask you something? Ryan said. Of course. People seemed very calm about all this. I expected more. Anger, more sadness about leaving. Amanda smiled, but it was not a happy smile. Oh, we're angry, Captain. We're very angry. But anger is more useful when it's cold and controlled. Before Ryan could ask what she meant, another voice called out. Dr. Ross, we're ready for the next shipment. The voice belonged to Peter Clark, Amanda's research assistant. He was a young man who had been born on New Haven and had never lived anywhere else. If anyone should be upset about leaving, it should be him. Peter, how are you feeling about all this? Ryan asked. Peter looked at him with eyes that seemed older than his years. I'm sad to leave, Captain, but I'm also excited. Excited? About being forced to abandon your home? No, sir. Excited about what comes next. Ryan didn't understand what the young man meant, but something in his voice made the captain feel uneasy. There was a confidence there that didn't match the situation. The loading continued for hours. Ryan's ship was designed to carry cargo, but even he was surprised by how much stuff the colonists were taking with them. It wasn't just personal belongings. They were taking industrial equipment, computers, manufacturing tools, even entire laboratory setups. Are you sure all this is allowed? Ryan asked Amanda as they watched workers load a piece of equipment that looked like it belonged in a spaceship factory. The Council said we had to leave, Amanda replied. They didn't say we couldn't take our property with us. As the sun began to set on New Haven, Ryan's ship was finally full. But the evacuation was far from over. All around the planet, hundreds of other ships were being loaded with people and equipment. The operation was so large and so organized that it seemed impossible it could have been planned in just a few weeks. "Doctor, can I ask you something else?" Ryan said as they prepared to leave. "What is it, Captain?" "This whole evacuation. It's too well organized. Too smooth. It's like you were all ready for this to happen." Amanda was quiet for a long moment. Then she looked at Ryan with serious eyes. "Captain Phillips, how long have you been hauling cargo between human colonies?" "About 15 years. In all that time, have you ever seen humans give up on something they really wanted?" Ryan thought about it. He had seen human miners work in impossible conditions to extract valuable minerals. He had seen human farmers grow crops on worlds where nothing should have been able to live. He had seen human soldiers fight against odds that should have killed them all. "No," he said slowly, "I've never seen humans give up." "Then why do you think we're giving up now?" Before Ryan could answer, Maria Santos called from the bridge. "Captain, we're cleared for takeoff. New Haven Control says we're the last ship in this group." As the Northern Star lifted off from New Haven, Ryan looked down at the planet through the window. The cities were still there, but they looked empty now. The lights were still on, but there were no people in the streets. It was like looking at a ghost world. "Captain," Maria said quietly, "I'm picking up some strange readings." "What kind of readings?" "Energy signatures, deep underground. I've never seen anything like them." Ryan looked at the scanner display. There were indeed strange signals coming from beneath New Haven's surface. They looked almost like the signatures from spaceship engines. But that was impossible. There were no ships underground. "Must be some kind of interference," he said. But he didn't really believe it. As they moved away from the planet, Ryan noticed something else. The other ships in the evacuation fleet were not all heading toward Earth. Some were going in different directions entirely. When he asked Maria to track them, she found that many were disappearing from sensors after just a few hours of travel. "Where are they going?" Maria wondered. "I don't know," Ryan replied. "But I'm starting to think this evacuation is not what it seems to be." 3 days later, the Northern Star arrived at Earth's orbital stations. The place was crowded with ships and people, all part of the great human exodus from the outer colonies. But as Ryan helped unload his cargo, he noticed something that made him even more suspicious. The people getting off the ships didn't seem like refugees. They seemed like people who were getting ready for something big. They moved with purpose and confidence. They talked in quiet groups about things Ryan couldn't quite hear. And when they thought nobody was watching, they smiled. Dr. Amanda Ross came to say goodbye before she left the station. "Thank you for your help, Captain Phillips," she said. "Doctor, I have to ask, what's really going on here?" Amanda looked around to make sure nobody was listening. Then she leaned close to Ryan and whispered, "Captain, do you really think a species that can travel between the stars would let itself be caged so easily?" Then she walked away, leaving Ryan with more questions than answers. As he watched her disappear into the crowd, he realized that the human evacuation was not an ending. It was a beginning. 2 years had passed since the humans left their colonies, and Counselor Zethkar was beginning to feel worried. He stood in his office on the council station, looking at reports that made no sense. The numbers were wrong. Everything was wrong. How many humans are living in the Sol system? He asked his intelligence officer, a thin Nexari named Kilmet. "According to our scans, approximately 4 billion, Kilmet replied, reading from his datapad. The same number that lived there before the evacuation. Zethkar felt his forearms tense with confusion. "That's impossible. We moved over 300 million humans from the outer colonies. The Sol system should have at least 4.5 billion people now." Yes, Counselor, that is what we expected to see. Then where are the missing 300 million humans? Kilmet's large eyes blinked slowly. We don't know, sir. Zethkar walked to the large window that looked out into space. In the distance, he could see the small yellow star that was Sol. For 2 years, the Nexari had been watching that star system with their most advanced sensors. They had counted every ship, every space station, every settlement. The humans seemed to be living quietly in their home system, causing no trouble. But the numbers didn't add up. What about their ships? Zethkar asked. How many vessels are they operating? That's another strange thing, sir. We count fewer ships now than before the evacuation. It's as if some of their fleet has simply disappeared. Zethkar turned back. To his officer, ships don't just disappear. They must be hiding somewhere. We've scanned the entire Sol system, sir. Multiple times. We've checked every asteroid, every moon, every planet. There are no hidden bases or secret facilities. Then expand the search. Check the systems near Sol. We have, sir. For 50 light years, in every direction. Nothing. Zethkar sat down heavily in his chair. For 2 years he had been proud of how the Council had handled the human problem. The galaxy was peaceful. Trade was flowing smoothly between the other species. There had been no conflicts, no wars, no trouble. But now he was starting to wonder if they had made a mistake. Kilmet, I want you to contact our agents in the other species' territories. Ask them if they've noticed anything unusual. Any strange ships, any odd activities, anything that might be connected to the humans. Yes, sir, right away. As his officer left, Zethkar continued staring out at the stars. Somewhere out there, 300 million humans had vanished. People didn't just disappear. They had to be somewhere, doing something. He just hoped they weren't planning something terrible. Meanwhile, deep in the outer reaches of the Sol system, Commander Blake Turner sat in his command chair aboard a station that officially didn't exist. The facility was built inside a large asteroid, hidden from any sensors the aliens might use. Around him, dozens of officers worked at computer stations, monitoring activities across the galaxy. Commander, we're receiving reports from Team 7, said his communications officer, Kate Wilson. The Valorian trade convoy has been tagged and is being tracked. Blake nodded. For 2 years, human agents had been moving through the galaxy like ghosts. They used ships that couldn't be detected, wore disguises that fooled alien sensors, and had access to technology that was decades ahead of anything the Council species possessed. The aliens thought humans had given up their dreams of expansion. They thought humanity had been defeated and was now content to stay in their home system like caged animals. They were wrong. Any word from the research teams? Blake asked. Dr. Ross reports that the biological warfare project is ahead of schedule. Kate replied. And the weapons development team says the new stealth technology is ready for field testing. Blake smiled grimly. The humans had spent 2 years very productively. While the aliens celebrated their victory, humanity had been preparing for something much bigger. Commander, called another officer, we're getting a priority message from Agent Martinez in Valorian space. Blake turned to listen. Agent Carlos Martinez was one of their best operatives, a man who could pass for several different alien species with the right disguises and technology. What's his report? He says the Valorians are becoming suspicious. They've noticed that some of their ships have been going missing. Small ones mostly, scouts and research vessels. How many? 17 ships in the past 6 months. Blake felt satisfied. The plan was working perfectly. The humans weren't just hiding in the Sol system. They were actively working throughout the galaxy, gathering intelligence, collecting resources, and preparing for the next phase of their expansion. But they were doing it so carefully, so quietly, that the aliens barely noticed. Any casualties? Blake asked. None, sir. The crews are all safe and comfortable in our hidden facilities. Most of them don't even know they've been captured. They think they're in some kind of training program. This was important to Blake. The humans weren't monsters. They didn't want to hurt innocent people. But they also weren't going to let the Council's decision stand without consequences. "Commander, we're also getting reports from the Nexari sectors," Kate said. 3 of their research stations have gone dark in the past month. Define gone. Dark, complete communication blackout. When investigation teams arrive, they find the stations empty but undamaged. No signs of struggle, no evidence of what happened to the crews. Blake allowed himself another small smile. The Nexari thought they were the most advanced species in the galaxy. Their technology was impressive, and their sensors were very good. But they had never encountered human stealth technology. The humans had learned much during their time among the aliens. They had studied every species, every technology, every weakness. Now they were using that knowledge. "What about the Kethmori?" Blake asked. "They're starting to ask questions," Kate replied. "Their intelligence services have noticed the pattern of disappearances. They're beginning to suspect that something organized is happening." "Good, let them suspect. Fear will make them make mistakes." Blake stood up and walked to a large display screen that showed a map of the galaxy. Red dots marked the locations of recent incidents. To most observers, they would seem random. But Blake could see the pattern. The humans were systematically targeting key installations, important ships, and valuable resources. They were doing it so carefully that each incident seemed like an accident or a mystery. But together, they were slowly weakening the Council species. "Commander," said another officer, "we're receiving a transmission from Ambassador Morrison." Blake's expression became serious. Jake Morrison was now working from a secret location, coordinating the human response to their forced exile. He had been quiet for 2 years, letting the aliens think he had accepted defeat. Put him through. Jake's face appeared on the screen. He looked older than he had 2 years ago, but his eyes were sharp and determined. "Blake, it's time to move." "To the next phase," Jake said. "Our intelligence networks are in place. Our agents are positioned. The aliens are starting to suspect something, but they don't know what. What are your orders, sir?" "Begin phase 2. I want them to know we're out here, but I don't want them to know what we're capable of. Make them afraid. Make them uncertain. Make them regret their decision to cage humanity." Blake felt a surge of excitement. For 2 years they had been planning and preparing. Now it was time to act. "Any specific targets?" "Yes, the Nexari flagship Eternal Glory is currently in the Centauri sector. It's their most advanced warship, and it's carrying their top military commanders to a strategy meeting." Blake understood immediately. Taking the Nexari flagship would send a message that couldn't be ignored. It would prove that nowhere was safe from human reach. "Consider it done, sir." Jake's image disappeared, and Blake turned to his officers. "Gentlemen, ladies, we've been waiting 2 years for this moment. It's time to remind the galaxy that humanity is not as harmless as they think." As orders went out to human agents across the galaxy, Blake felt a deep satisfaction. The aliens had thought they were clever, forcing humanity to retreat to their home system. They had thought they were safe. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The Nexari flagship Eternal Glory was 3 days away from discovering just how advanced human technology had become. And when it vanished without a trace, the galaxy would finally begin to understand what they had unleashed when they decided to cage the human race. The quiet time was over. The reckoning was about to begin. Admiral Carl Hayes stood on the bridge of his ship Reaper and watched the Nexari flagship through the darkness of space. The Eternal Glory was massive, almost 2 miles long, and covered with weapons and shields. It was supposed to be the most powerful warship in the galaxy, impossible to defeat or capture. The Nexari crew of 3,000 had no idea they were being watched. "Target is holding steady course," reported his tactical officer, Tony Mitchell. "They'll reach the jump point in 6 hours." Carl nodded. The Eternal Glory was heading to a secret meeting where Nexari military leaders would discuss new strategies for controlling the galaxy. They thought they were safe in their powerful ship, surrounded by an escort of 12 smaller warships. "We're wrong. Status on the boarding teams?" Carl asked. "Ready and waiting, sir," replied Lieutenant Sarah Kim, his operations officer. "All 4 teams are in position." Carl felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. For 2 years, humans had been taking small ships and minor installations. Today they would attempt something that should have been impossible. They were going to capture the flagship of the most advanced military in the galaxy. "Remember, we want prisoners, not bodies," Carl told his crew. "These people have information we need, but they're also not our real enemies." The council made this decision, not the ordinary soldiers and sailors. The Reaper was unlike any ship the aliens had ever seen. It was built using technology that humanity had developed during their 2 years of exile. The hull was covered with materials that absorbed sensor waves, making it nearly invisible. The engines produced almost no heat signature. Even at close range, most alien sensors couldn't detect it. "Sir, we're receiving a signal from Agent Martinez," Tony reported. "He confirms that the escort ships are running on schedule. No changes to their route." Carl smiled grimly. Agent Carlos Martinez was aboard one of the escort ships, disguised as a Valorian trader who was hitching a ride to the next system. The aliens had no idea that a human agent was sitting in their mess hall, drinking their coffee and listening to their conversations. "Begin the operation," Carl ordered. What happened next would have seemed like magic to anyone watching. 4 small ships that had been invisible to all sensors suddenly appeared around the Nexari fleet. They moved with impossible speed and precision, like sharks attacking the school of fish. The first escort ship never knew what hit it. One moment it was cruising peacefully through space. The next moment its engines stopped working and its communications went dead. The crew found themselves breathing sleeping gas that came from their own air systems. Within minutes, everyone aboard was unconscious. The same thing happened to the other escort ships. One by one, they simply stopped responding to signals from the flagship. Their crews fell asleep at their posts. Their weapons powered down. Their shields collapsed. Commander Veltar of the Eternal Glory watched his escort ships go dark and felt ice in his blood. "What's happening out there?" he demanded. "Unknown, sir," replied his sensor officer. "The escorts have stopped responding. But we can't detect any enemy ships. That's impossible. Ships don't just attack themselves." "Sir, I'm detecting some kind of gas in the escort ship's atmosphere systems. It appears to be some form of sleeping agent." Veltar's eyes went wide. Someone was using chemical weapons to disable his fleet. But who? And how had they gotten past all his sensors? Raise shields. Charge all weapons. Send a distress signal to Nexari Command. "Sir, our communications are being jammed. We can't send any signals." "By whom? I don't see any ships out there." "Unknown, sir." As Veltar tried to understand what was happening, the Reaper moved closer to the Eternal Glory. The human ship was still invisible to Nexari sensors, but Carl could see everything happening on the alien flagship. Their crew was scared and confused. Exactly as he had hoped. "Tony, are we in position for boarding?" Carl asked. "Yes, sir. Boarding tubes are extended and ready." "Sarah, status on the sleeping gas?" "Deployed and spreading through their ventilation system. We should have full coverage in 10 minutes. Carl had to admire the ingenuity of Dr. Amanda Ross and her research team. They had spent 2 years studying alien biology, learning exactly how different species' bodies worked. The sleeping gas they had developed was perfectly designed to affect Nexari physiology without causing any permanent harm. "Sir, I'm detecting movement on the flagship," Tony reported. "Some of their crew are starting to fall asleep at their stations." Through the bridge windows, Carl could see lights going out section by section aboard the Eternal Glory. The massive warship was slowly going dark as its crew succumbed to the sleeping gas. "Sir, this is boarding team Alpha," came a voice over the radio. "We're inside the ship. Crew members are unconscious but breathing normally. No resistance encountered." "Boarding team Beta reporting. We've secured the engine room. All systems are under our control. Boarding team Gamma here. We've reached the bridge. Commander Veltar and his senior officers are unconscious but unharmed." Carl felt relief wash over him. The operation was working perfectly. In less than an hour, they had captured the most powerful warship in the galaxy without firing a single shot or harming a single person. "Sir, boarding team Delta reporting from the computer core. We've accessed their data systems and are downloading everything." This was the real prize. The Eternal Glory's computers contained military secrets, star charts, communication codes, and strategic plans. Information that would help humanity understand exactly what they were up against. "All teams, begin Phase 2, Carl ordered. "Move all prisoners to the holding areas. Secure all equipment and weapons. I want this ship ready to jump in 30 minutes. As his boarding teams worked, Carl thought about how the galaxy was going to react when they realized what had happened. The Nexari would be terrified. The Valorians would be confused. The Kethmori would be angry. But most importantly, they would all realize that humanity was not the defeated, caged species they thought they were dealing with. "Sir, we're getting reports from across the galaxy," Sarah announced. "Operation Midnight is proceeding on schedule," Carl nodded. The capture of the Eternal Glory was only one part of a much larger plan. At this very moment, human agents were striking targets throughout known space. Research stations were going dark. Communication relays were being disabled. Supply convoys were disappearing. The aliens were about to discover that humanity had been very busy during their 2 years of supposed exile. "Tony, set course for Rendezvous Point Alpha. Best speed." "Yes, sir." Course laid in. As the Reaper jumped into hyperspace with its prize in tow, Carl opened a secure communication channel. "To Ambassador Jake Morrison. Mission accomplished, sir. The Eternal Glory is in our hands, along with her entire crew and computer database." Jake's face appeared on the screen, and for the first time in 2 years, he was smiling. "Excellent work, Carl. What's the status of the crew?" "All 3,000 are alive and unharmed. They're sleeping peacefully and will wake up in about 8 hours with nothing worse than mild headaches." "Good. Make sure they're treated well. We want them to understand that we're not barbarians." "What about the ship itself?" "Keep it. I think it will make an excellent addition to our fleet." Carl felt his excitement growing. "Sir, are you saying what I think you're saying?" "The exile is over, Admiral Hayes. It's time for humanity to reclaim its place in the galaxy." The title made Carl pause. Admiral Hayes. He had been a commander when the operation started, but apparently his successful capture of the Nexari flagship had earned him a promotion. "What are our next orders, sir?" "Return to base and prepare for Phase 3. We're going to give the Council a choice. They can accept humanity as equals, or they can deal with the consequences of trying to cage a species that refuses to be caged." As the communication ended, Carl looked out at the stars rushing past his ship. Somewhere behind them, the alien council was about to discover that their most powerful warship had vanished without a trace. Soon they would realize that dozens of other facilities and ships had also disappeared. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity had not spent 2 years hiding in their home system. They had spent 2 years preparing for war, and now that war was about to begin, But this would not be the kind of war the aliens expected. This would be a war fought in shadows, with weapons they couldn't see and tactics they couldn't understand. This would be a war where the hunters became the hunted, where the powerful became powerless, and where the species that thought they ruled the galaxy would discover they had made the biggest mistake in their long history. They had underestimated humanity. And now they were going to pay the price. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike anything anyone had ever seen. Counselor Zethkar looked around the Great Hall and saw fear in every alien face. The proud Valorians sat with their golden skin pale and their forearms trembling. The ancient Kethmori whispered to each other in voices full of worry. The Nexari stared at their data pads with wide eyes that couldn't believe what they were reading. In the past week, the galaxy had gone mad. 17 major military installations had simply vanished. Not destroyed, not damaged, just empty. The crews were gone. The equipment was gone. Even the food in the cafeterias was gone. It was as if entire bases had been picked up and moved somewhere else. The Nexari flagship Eternal Glory had disappeared along with its escort fleet. 3,000 of their best military personnel were missing. The ship had been carrying their top admirals to a secret strategy meeting that would never happen. Trade routes that had been safe for centuries were now graveyards. Cargo ships would enter a system and never come out the other side. Rescue teams would find nothing but empty space where convoys should have been. How many ships have we lost? Zethkar asked the room. Over 200, replied Admiral Kexter, his voice barely above a whisper. Valorian, Nexari, Kethmori, and several smaller species, all gone without a trace. Any survivors? Any witnesses? None. Whatever is taking our ships leaves no evidence behind. Counselor Vexma stood up on shaking legs. Her silver Nexari skin looked almost gray with fear. This has to be connected to the humans. The timing is too perfect to be coincidence. Impossible, said Counselor Dureth. We've been watching the Sol system for 2 years. They have maybe 2,000 ships total, and most of those are cargo vessels and civilian transports. They don't have the military power to do this. Then who does? Vexma demanded. What other species has the technology to make our ships disappear? The hall fell silent. Nobody had an answer because there was no answer. No known species in the galaxy had the ability to do what was being done to them. Counselors, said a voice from the back of the hall. Everyone turned to see who had spoken. The hall was supposed to be sealed during emergency sessions. No one was allowed to enter without permission, but standing at the entrance, as calm as if he had been invited, was Jake Morrison. The former human ambassador walked slowly down the center aisle toward the speaker's platform. He looked older than when they had last seen him 2 years ago. His hair was more gray, his face had more lines, but his eyes burned with a cold fire that made several council members step back. Behind him walked 4 other humans. Admiral Carl Hayes wore a military uniform that none of the aliens recognized. Dr. Amanda Ross carried a small briefcase that seemed to worry the Nexari council members. The other 2 humans were strangers, but they moved with the confidence of people who knew exactly where they belonged. Impossible, breathed Zethkar. How did you get past our security? Jake smiled, but it was not a warm expression. The same way we got past all your other security, counselor. We walked through. Guards, Zethkar shouted. Arrest these humans immediately. Nothing happened. The council chamber's security force, which should have responded instantly to his command, remained silent. I'm afraid your guards are taking a nap, Jake said calmly. Don't worry, they're perfectly safe. They'll wake up in a few hours with mild headaches and no memory of how they fell asleep. The aliens in the hall began to panic. Some tried to activate emergency communicators, but found that their devices weren't working. Others attempted to call for help, but discovered that all the communication systems in the building had been disabled. "What do you want?" Zethkar demanded. Trying to keep his voice steady, Jake reached the speaker's platform and turned to face the assembled council members. "What I want is very simple, Counselor. I want to have a conversation about the future. You have no right to be here. This is a restricted session of the Galactic Council." "The Galactic Council," Jake repeated slowly. "Yes, let's talk about that. 2 years ago, this council decided that humanity was too dangerous to be allowed to expand beyond our home system. You gave us an ultimatum. Withdraw to Sol, or face the combined military might of your entire alliance." The hall was completely quiet now. Every alien representative was listening to Jake's words with growing fear. "We accepted your ultimatum," Jake continued. "We withdrew our colonies. We brought our people home. We did exactly what you demanded. Then, why are you attacking us?" Vexma asked. "Attacking?" Jake looked genuinely surprised. "Counselor, we haven't attacked anyone. We've simply been retrieving our property." "Your property?" Admiral Carl Hayes stepped forward. "The ships and installations. You've lost contained materials and equipment that originally belonged to human colonies. We're simply taking back what's ours." "That's impossible," Doroth protested. "Those were our ships, our bases, our people." Dr. Amanda Ross opened her briefcase and pulled out a data pad. "Actually, if you check your records carefully, you'll find that 60% of the technology in your missing installations was originally developed by human researchers. The medical equipment, the computer systems, the manufacturing tools, even the food production methods. All human innovations that we shared with you during our years of cooperation." The aliens looked at each other with growing understanding and horror. During the decades of human expansion, humanity had indeed shared a great deal of technology with other species. Trade agreements, research partnerships, and mutual aid treaties had spread human knowledge throughout the galaxy. "You can't just take back technology you've already given away," Zethkar said weakly. "Can't we?" Jake's smile grew colder. "You broke every agreement we had when you forced us to abandon our colonies. Trade treaties, research partnerships, mutual defense pacts. All of them became meaningless the moment you decided to cage humanity. So we decided that our gifts to the galaxy had also become meaningless. The truth was starting to dawn on the council members. The humans hadn't just been hiding for 2 years. They had been systematically reclaiming everything they had ever shared with alien civilizations. Besides," Admiral Hayes added, "we haven't hurt anyone. Every person on those ships and installations is alive and well. They're being treated as honored guests in our facilities." "Guests?" Vexma's voice was shrill with fear. "You mean prisoners?" "Not at all," Dr. Ross said cheerfully. "They're free to leave anytime they want. We just haven't told them where they are, and they don't have any ships to leave in." Jake raised his hand for silence. "But we're not here to discuss the past. We're here to talk about the future. You see, the galaxy has changed in the past 2 years. The balance of power has shifted." "What do you mean?" Zethkar asked. "I mean that humanity is no longer the minor species you remember. During our exile, we've grown, we've learned. We've developed technologies that make your most advanced systems look like stone tools." To prove his point, Jake pressed a button on a small device he carried. Suddenly, the lights in the council chamber dimmed, and holographic displays appeared in the air above the assembled aliens. The displays showed star maps covering the entire galaxy. Thousands of red dots appeared, marking locations throughout known space. "Each red dot represents a human facility," Jake explained. "We're not confined to the Sol system anymore, counselors. We're everywhere. In your space, in neutral territory, in systems you didn't even know existed." The aliens stared at the display in shock. There were human installations in every sector of the galaxy, including many in the heart of their own territories. Impossible, Dareth whispered. We would have detected them. Would you? Admiral Hayes asked. With what sensors? The same ones that couldn't detect our ships when we took your installations? The same technology that couldn't see us when we walked into this supposedly secure building? Jake pressed another button and the display changed. Now it showed fleet positions throughout the galaxy. Thousands of ship icons appeared, all marked with human symbols. The human fleet now numbers over 50,000 vessels, Jake announced. All of them invisible to your sensors. All of them armed with weapons you can't defend against. All of them crewed by people who remember being forced from their homes 2 years ago. The number hit the aliens like a physical blow. 50,000 ships. The combined fleets of all Council species totaled less than 15,000 vessels. This is impossible, Zethkar said desperately. You can't have built 50,000 ships in 2 years. We didn't build them, Dr. Ross said with a smile. We grew them. Grew them? Biotechnology counselor. Something we developed during our exile. Ships that grow like living creatures, but with the strength of metal and the speed of light. We can produce a new vessel in weeks rather than years. Jake let the implications sink in before continuing. So here's the situation, Council members. Humanity is no longer the species you can push around. We're stronger than you now. We're more advanced than you. And we're everywhere. What do you want from us? Vexma asked in a small voice. Nothing too complicated, Jake replied. We want our colonies back. All of them. We want full membership in the Galactic Council with voting rights equal to any other species. And we want a formal apology for the way we were treated. And if we refuse? Zethkar asked.